entrance.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Okay, I titled today's shir Know Your Enemy, because...
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you. I entitled today's shir Know Your Enemy because it's Parshas Balak. And in Parshas Balak, we did not know our enemy. We had no idea what was happening. For those people, just a quick summary of Parshas Balak for the people who need a quick summary. So we have the king of Moab, whose name was Balak ben Zippor, who was a magician. In biblical times, you had people who knew how to do witchcraft, and it was very damaging, and they used it for damaging reasons. So, because the Jewish people were like plowing through all the enemies that were attacking us, so the king of Moab, who is from Lot, got scared that were going to come into his land and attack him. And he saw from history, he saw from what was happening in the world then, that he couldn't go head on with the Jewish people. So he decided to attack us from the back. And what does that mean? So he decided to attack us with some kind of a spiritual weapon. The Jewish people, as the world is learning and has to learn, and we ourselves have to rediscover, is that we're not a physical people. If we were a physical people only, then we would have been destroyed long ago. But we have a spiritual dynamic to us, and that's what keeps us alive. And that, by the way, is one of the reasons why the nations of the world can't figure us out. And they can't figure out why they have anti Semitism, why there's such an aversion to us. And Chazal, our rabbis, explained to us that the reason that the anti Semites of the world have such an aversion to us has different layers. One layer is that their soul is screaming that the Jewish people have to do our job in this world and bring the Mashiach. That's a concept that the Jewish world has. We have to fix this world. It's a responsibility. It's a very, very big responsibility. And calls man, as long as we're not fixing this world, the nations of the world are annoyed with us. That's one reason for anti-Semitism. That's a very deep reason, and they have no idea that that's what is bothering them. Because the spiritual nations of the world, or the spiritual people within the nations of the world, admire the spiritual Torah observance. Jews who hold on to Torah, they admire us, but they don't realize that there's a part of the nations of the world that are annoyed with us because their life is so miserable because of us. Meaning, the world is imperfect because we haven't drawn God back into the world. Our job is to draw God back into the world. How do we do that? We do that by the mitzvot, the commandments of the Torah, by the positive commandments of fulfilling the mitzvot, and by the negative commandments of avoiding those actions and those situations that God says to avoid, and to uplift this world with kindness, with holiness, with charitableness, with honesty, with truth, with justice. That's the job of the Jewish people, and we're working on it very, very hard, as best as we can. And until the world is finished and the world is fixed and perfected, everyone is annoyed with us. That's the subtle reason, the spiritual reason for anti-Semitism. There's another reason, and that is that the people of the world who have chosen to be against God and to be against godliness, they understand that there's only one source of nourishment spiritually, and either the Jewish people receive or they receive. Either the Jewish people receive the godly sustenance, or it's given over to the other side. It's a spiritual, also very deep spiritual dynamic, and that's those people who have chosen to be evil. And there are sadly people in this world who have chosen that. They've chosen to be evil. and they aligned themselves against God, against holiness, against humanity, against kindness, and they've aligned themselves with selfishness, greed, desire for power, arrogance, etc. That's their choice. They will be obliterated at the end of time, sadly, unless they do teshuvah. So part of them is competition with us for the godly sustenance and benevolence, because godly sustenance and benevolence comes through a channel, and either a Jew receives it by doing the mitzvah, or by doing teshuvah, or even by suffering. Or if we don't do any of those things, it goes to a parallel to a non-Jew. Okay. There's another reason that the non-Jewish world is that there's anti-Semitism. That is pure, simple jealousy. God knows the Creator knows that he wanted to bestow the Torah to all of mankind, and He gave an opportunity for all of mankind to choose to join the Torah, and every nation rejected. That's the medrash that we talk about on Shavuos all the time. Hashem brought the nations of the world their different opportunities to attach to the Torah, and each nation said, "Well, what is the Torah? What's written in it?" And God gave to every nation the answer that was the hardest for them to hear. For example, to Esav, He said, "It's written, don't kill." And then Esav said, "Well, they're killers by nature, so how could they go against their nature and not kill?" And He said to Yishmael, "Don't steal." And Yishmael said, "That's his nature, to steal." And every nation of the world was given the hardest task, and they each said they can't do that. And the point that God was making is, of course you can, but that's what the Torah does. It takes your basic nature and it transforms it, it elevates it to the higher level of whatever that particular nature is. And you certainly can overcome. But the nations of the world opted out. We didn't. And what was that when God said to us, when He said to us, "Would you like to take the Torah?" So we said right away, yes. But in order to make the medrash parallel, in other words, what did God tell us as a deterrent that was going to be hard for us to do? Just like He said to Asaph, "Don't steal, don't kill." Ishmael, "Don't steal, don't commit adultery." So what did He say to us? And He said to us, "Don't come close. Hagbel, stay around the heart, the mountain of Sinai, and don't lead karev. Don't come closer to God than your level is." And that was very hard for Jewish people to hear, because we're running to God all the time. And we're jumping over all of the barriers. And we don't want to be told, "You stay here until you're ready to become the next level." And so that was hard. And Hashem said to us, to limit ourselves a little bit spiritually until we're ready. Because we all think that we're ready to be big, giant Kabbalists. And probably now, at the end of exile, we probably are. But anyway, Balak decided that he can't attack the Jewish people physically or militarily or any of that way, because none of those things worked with any of the other nations that he observed have coming in contact with the Jewish people. So he decided that he's going to attack us spiritually, and the only spiritual human that he had to access was Bilam. Bilam was a very big, famous sorcerer, magician, fortune teller, whatever, spiritual dabbler. He dabbled in the arts, in the spiritual arts, probably the black arts, a little bit of the white arts of black magic and white magic and all of that. And those things actually do exist. They exist, and we have to avoid them. One of the mitzvot in the Torah that we have as a Jew is to avoid any of the touching of negativity that the black magic does when it accesses the energy of negativity, the primal energy of negativity. We're all supposed to avoid that. Anyway, he calls Bilam, and he tries to get to Bilam to curse the Jewish people 3 times. And each time Bilam opens his mouth, and God puts words of blessings into his mouth. And each time Balak, the king who hired him, is frustrated and is annoyed and says, "Why are you blessing these people? I wanted you to destroy them with your power of your curses, and you're blessing them." And Bilam keeps saying that he's powerless to go against God's will. And then finally, the fourth time, without being provoked, he gave the greatest blessing. And then he gave Balak a big advice, and he said to him, "Listen, you can't destroy these people spiritually. Only they can destroy themselves, and this is the biggest secret of the Jewish people. And I'm revealing it to ourselves, and we should know how to avoid falling into that pitfall. The biggest secret of the Jewish people is the only ones who can hurt us are ourselves. And so Bilam gave the advice of uh, provoke the Jewish people to some kind of immorality, get them to give in to the Yetzer Hara, and that will create a negative energy surrounding them that he, Bilam, was not able to create. He was not able to create an external negative energy around the Jewish people. Only we can do that. And sadly, in the end of the parsha, we did fail, and it wasn't as we think it was. It wasn't an orgy, chas v'shalom, God forbid, or some kind of a, I don't know, inappropriate party. It was the Jewish people were trying. There's an idea that if you conquer the spirituality of a nation, then you can destroy it. And so the women who came out to tempt the Jewish men, all of them were aristocratic women. They were queens and princesses and duchesses and all of those kinds of things. And the Jewish men who took them hoped that they would, by taking these women, they who were offering themselves to the Jewish men, they would be able to weaken their nation. Many, many years later, to make a separation between this event and a whole year event, Shlomo HaMelech actually was able to accomplish in the same way what they tried to do by marrying all of the queens and the princesses of the different nations in the world, and by converting them, and bringing them under the Shekhinah's presence, he was able to conquer the world in that way. That's when he built the Beis Hamikdash, etc. Okay, that's the general the story of the parsha. At the end of the parsha, we have the story, the very, very hard to understand story that the that the tribe, the prince of the tribe of Shimon, whose name is Zimri ben Salu, he tried to take the princess in public of Midianite princess, and his intention was not physical or needy. His intention was, as I said before, to capture Midian. Moshe Rabbeinu said, however, that's forbidden at this point, and he didn't try to convert her. Later on, there's all kinds of midrashim, and not midrashim, the Sefer Hagilgulim of the Ariya Kodesh talks about who were these neshamas that keep coming back again and again and again, this unlikely pair of neshamas. The same mistake that Potiphar's wife made, the same mistake that Shem ben Chamor made, the same mistake that Zimri made. That mistake keeps coming back again and again in different zivugim. And only Hashem knows when the zivug is appropriate. Anyway, we meet Pinchas at the end of the parsha. He saves the Jewish people. And 24,000 Jews were killed, 24,000 people were killed in this incident of the Baal Peor, of the women who tempted the Jewish men in front of their idol Baal Peor, that the Baal Peor, as distasteful as it is to us, but one of the ways of worshiping the Baal Peor was to urinate in front of it, in front of the statue. And so the Jewish men would laugh and say, "That's how you worship your God," and they would do that. To the Jewish men, it was an act of absolute disrespect. But since it was the behavior of the non-Jewish world at that point, it was considered improper. And you should know something. There's all kinds of things that we innocent people have no idea about in terms of the way that the non-Jewish world serves their gods. Lo yuman, it wouldn't be, it's not understandable to a Jew and to a sincere and pure-minded Jew. How could a non-Jew take their babies and their 5-year-old children and throw them into the fire and that way worship the Molech? And how could they have sexual activities in front of their statues, in front of their idols, and consider that observing and honoring their God? And we know that the Gemara says that the only reason that people serve idolatry is to give them permission to give in to their most basest, lowest, desires and behaviors. So that's the parsha. Now the Jewish people had no idea about any of this because all this chevra, Bilam and Balak and all of Balak's ministers and Bilam's donkey and all that, they were all in a mountain someplace. The mountains are far, far away. The Jewish people had no idea that this was happening. Every year we point this out. Every year we point the same idea out. Hashem put this parsha into the Torah for many, of course, infinite reasons. But one of the reasons that we see on the simplest level of pshat is God is saving us from things that we have no idea that are even in the background. We have no idea which enemies are plotting and trying and wanting to hurt us. As one policeman here, an Israeli policeman, once told me, for every event that we hear about, every chayfetz chashud, which means every bomb that's planted in a civilian territory, for every one that we hear about, for every attack that we hear about, there are 10 others that we never hear about because they're prevented and they keep them quiet. A policeman once told me that at an attack. It was at an attack in Baruch Hashem, they were able to find, it was a box full of a bomb by the beach, and they were able to, they spotted it, they called bomb squad, the bomb squad came and exploded I told you story many, many times, exploded the bomb in their bomb-proof truck. I watched this whole thing, it was fascinating, it was like watching a movie. And the policeman, I was very, very young. It was when I first came. It was even before I came to Eretz to live here. It was maybe like 30 years ago. And I was, this curious American. And I asked the policeman a million questions. And this is one of the things he said to me. He said, it's only with Hashem's help. He was, by the way, without a kippah, kind of a policeman, shaved, bald head with an earring. And he said, Hashem saves us, God saves us. And then he said, for every one that you hear about, there are 10 that you never hear about. Anyway, so the point is that at this very moment in time, someplace in the world, someone is plotting against the Jewish people, against me and you, whether it's here in the land of Israel, whether it's in whatever land Jews are living. There's plots against us continually, whether they're plots economically or physically, chas v'shalom. And we have no idea why, because Hashem is saving us. So every year, Parshas Balak, we have to thank Hashem for all the times that He saved us that we had no idea about. And not just that, but it's in our own private lives. How many times did you cross the street and you just didn't pay attention to the fact that a bus almost came or a car was pulling out? How many times do you see children running across the street? This is so hard for me to see. It gets me so nervous. Sometimes you see little kids and they're playing and they run across the street to catch the ball or to whatever they do. And little kids, they're when they're immersed in their toys, in their games, they don't, all the warnings of mommy and daddy go out the window. And how many times Hashem saves us every second, every second. Hashem is always saving us. He's always Matir Asurim, because we could be Asurim. He's always okay for me. He's freeing us. He's lifting us up. He's opening up our eyes every second, every second. This is the parsha to say thank you. And we see what happened this week. This week, okay, it was Shabbos. It was Motzei Shabbos when we found out about it here in Eretz Yisrael. But you see what happened is they tried to kill President Trump, and now they're revealing. Everybody's sending their homemade, phone-made videos, and they're seeing how incompetent the Secret Service was, and the police. The Secret Service blames the police blames the Secret Service. And it's one of those stories. You wonder, like, how long is it going to take the American people to forget this whole event, and to even suspect that this was an inside job? How many inside jobs are there going to be before the regular common man wakes up and says, Ad Khan, it's enough. Hashem, we want your Malchus. We're sick and tired of the Malchus of Sheker. We're sick and tired of the sovereignty and the rulership of evil liars, corrupt people who are only in this for themselves and have no clue about other people's lives and have no really regard for other people's lives. So Hashem, we need Hashem's Malchus. And who's going to be the one who will guide us in Hashem's Malchus is Mashiach. And where will be that? In here in Yerushalayim Kodesh, in the Beis Hamikdash. All of that's what we're supposed to be davening for every single day. Okay, so let's focus on this. This is the general. The Balak tried to destroy the whole Jewish people, and there are people who are trying to destroy the entire Jewish people. Then there are people who are trying to destroy you and me individually, or there's our biggest enemy, which is ourselves. Ourselves are our biggest enemy. And what's the part of ourself that's our biggest enemy? And that's our lack of understanding who we are and what we are. Who we are and what we are. We are an infinite source of godliness, every one of us. And this is what the Tanya teaches. The primary teaching of Hasidus is have self-esteem and self-worth, because you are the most remarkable creature ever created. You are infinite. You are a source of God's infinite light in this world. And it's true that that source is buried inside of us. It's our neshama, and it's inside of us. It's what enlivens us, but it's the body. The Tanya teaches about the body, that the body is this barrier, the nefesh bahamis, and the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, and the animal soul. It's just the first 3 chapters of Tanya. Read it. It's in English. You can find it in English. And you have to now we have to think about that all the time. Who am I really? And what is my capacity? My capacity is infinite. Therefore, I have no self-esteem issues, because I am carrying the soul within me that is an emanation of God. I am beaming out an emanation of God. And the more I access that part of me, the more I remember. It's just about remembering. What am I? Then I tell my animal soul, listen, animal soul, which is, by the way, the animal soul is the source of a personality. It's certainly also of course, the source of the Yetzer Hara. It's also the enlivening force of the body, the nefesh, and it's in the blood. All of that's my animal soul. And ultimately, my animal soul will be elevated very, very high. There's a concept in Hasidus which I cannot begin to explain because I don't fully grasp it. And I'll share it with you, the words, but I'm going to tell you that the experience of it I have not yet felt. But it says in Hasidus that when Mashiach comes, the animal soul or the physical will actually surpass the spiritual. In other words, the animal, the physicality, not the animal soul, but the physicality will be enlivening the neshama. Now, I don't understand what that means. I can't really explain it to you, but I can say it to you. In other words, eventually we'll appreciate the fact that God put our soul into a body. Right now, there's a battle going on between the body and the soul. The body wants to sleep, the soul wants to wake up for the nates. The body wants to eat, the soul says you're fleishiks, you can't eat milchiks. The body wants to say something about the next door neighbor, and the soul says, no way, you let us say that. It's Lashon Hara. So there's always this battle between the body and the soul, the nefesh Bahamas and the nefesh Elokis. The animating soul, and it's not a bad soul. The body's not bad. The body's very good. It's our tool to do mitzvah in this world. But there's a tension between them that will be resolved eventually. That will be resolved. Okay, so who's the biggest enemy? Who's your biggest enemy? Is yourself. We are our biggest enemy because of our attitude. That's the hardest part of a Jew is to maintain a positive attitude. To say, no matter what I look like, no matter what I act, no matter who I was born to, no matter how many mistakes I've made, I never, you just learned this actually with Rebbe Gatli, you never lose the title of Bnei Yisrael, which is the higher level than Bnei Yaakov, or Beis Yaakov. So we're the gift of being a Jew. Rabbi Nachman says the gift of being a Jew, and Rabbi Tzadok explains this a lot in Sikas HaTzadik and Sisei Laila. The biggest gift that we have that can never ever ever be removed from us is that we're Jewish. And we have a Jewish soul. Now, for the non-Jews who are watching, and there are non-Jews who watch, so for a holy convert has a pure Jewish soul like any other Jew. And for a non-Jew who is a Noahide, who's a Ben or a Bat Noach, it means that you're fulfilling the seven Noahide laws as written in the Torah given by Hashem to the world. So such a Ben Noach or a Bat Noach is also a Ben Olam Haba and has a portion of eternity and bliss. One of the reasons that the exile, one of the many reasons the exile is taking so long, is because Hashem wants everyone to enter into Olam Haba, into the world to come. And so, I don't exactly know how he does this, but he knows how he's doing it. That's all that counts. He's getting everybody somehow into the world to come by schlepping out this exile. And by having, the longer the exile schleps out, believe it or not, the less expectations Hashem has of us. To the point where maybe just even being proud that you're Jewish is enough at this point for some people who have not received any Jewish education at all. Okay, so now let's talk about our own enemy, that's ourselves. David HaMelech, the whole book of Tehillim, he's talking about Oivai, Verodfai, my enemies, those who are pursuing me, those who are chasing me. Sarai, those people who are trying to limit me, all of those. So, and David HaMelech, of course, had actual people in the world who were doing that to him. However, the Medrash in Tehillim says that everything that happened to David HaMelech's life happened on 3 different levels. The first level was his personal life. The second level was the life of the entire nation of Israel. And the third level was the level of each Jew individually. So I hope that you don't have any enemies, and I hope that you're okay with your neighbors, and I hope that you're okay with your machatanim and your in-laws, and that no one's plotting against you. None of us are such famous people that We have worldwide plots against us. But we do have an enemy, and that is my feeling that I can't accomplish. The feeling that I can't accomplish, that's your biggest enemy. That's our biggest enemy. Our biggest enemy says, I'm not good enough. I'm not fill in the blank enough spiritually. That's the biggest enemy of the Jewish people. And that's why Bilam understood that. And he understood that if you can get a Jew to sin, then what happens? Then the Jew feels so bad that he or she gives up hope and loses hope and just throws in the towel and starts to say Lashon Hara about themselves. See, the sin isn't the worst thing. It's the after the sin that we have to deal with. The guilt, the feelings of guilt, the feelings of unworthiness. So what do? Hashem says, I gave you the easiest solution to that. And you just don't believe that it works. But the solution is teshuvah. Say, that thing that I just did is not me. The real me is very, very safe inside. But the behavioral me just did a behavior which is external to my essence. And that behavior that I just did, I would like to erase and delete and negate and perhaps even transform. Just like Hashem has an essence. Hashem's essence is unknowable to any of his creations. Only Hashem knows his own essence. But Hashem has external behavior. Now, Hashem's external behavior is always perfect. We believe that. Hatzur, Tamim, Ha'olo. His behavior, his actions are absolutely perfect. We don't always understand. We sometimes think this is too tough, this is too mean, this is too exaggerated. Sometimes we feel that Hashem, everything Hashem does is perfect. Absolutely everything Hashem does, everything that God does is absolutely perfect. But those are his behaviors. In his essence, he's unchanged. Ani Hashem lo shiniti, says the pasuk. I am God, I never change. What do you mean you never change? Sometimes you're kind and we win a war. Sometimes it's tough and we lose a war. What does that mean you never change? Of course you don't change. Hashem's essence doesn't change. Hashem's behavior changes. Same thing with us. Our essence doesn't change. We are in the Neshama Elokai Neshama Shenatata B'Torah. I am a pure soul. And that doesn't change. But my behavior, sometimes my outer behavior, sometimes that changes. And that's annoying when that happens. And then I have to do the very simple process of teshuvah. That's all. Hashem, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it again. And now I'm a brand new person. Why is it that every single day, all the tzaddikim, every day now we're getting encouraging messages? I mean, the truth is that there are some people who are giving out discouraging messages and scary messages. The world is coming to an end, chas v'shalom, God forbid, and there's going to be, I just saw, we're in a very hot summer here in Eretz Yisrael. And Yerushalayim Yakosh, we had some glorious days, Shabbos, last week, Shabbos, Sunday, I don't remember Monday anymore, maybe Monday, glorious weather, real Yerushalayim. Yerushalmi summer is not like this. Then we're going back into a heat wave, chas v'shalom, I hope not. But it's unusual, the hot weather that we're having. And so, of course, instead of just saying this is a hot summer, we're saying, they're all predicting that everything's going to, whatever, people are predicting. The people who are the naysayers and the negativity predictors, okay, they have a reason and they have their point. But the Rav Yenuka keeps saying, be positive. He says, just don't give up hope and don't be afraid and just work on yourself. Keep davening and keep doing charity work and keep elevating other people and encouraging other people and making shidduchim. Now is a good time to make shidduchim and all these, just encouraging words of encouragement. And that's how, and all the tzaddikim were really like that. Rabbi Nachman keeps screaming at us, and even though up in Shemayim already for over 200 years, but his teachings are always with us, and he keeps saying, find your good point. Find the point that you are great in. What are you good in? And I'm not just talking about you're a good cook, even though that's a very good thing and it comes in very handy. But if you're a very good cook, so what are you doing with that? So you're cooking L'Kavod Shabbos Kodesh, or you're helping other people get food on their table, or you're, I don't know, giving workshops on how to make challah, whatever. I don't know. But find the nikudat of the good points in your personality, in your soul. What are you unique? And don't say I'm nobody special. You're not nobody special. You're someone special. You're unique. How do I know that? Because it says that every single Jew is a different letter in the Sefer Torah. Now, how could that be? There's only 300 something, 100,000 letters in the Sefer Torah. Maybe if you expand the letters to 600,000 letters in the Sefer Torah, and there's been millions and millions of Jewish souls, that's okay. You can have everything. You could have, let's say you're from the letter, I don't know, let's say you're from the letter Yud in Hashem's name, in one of the places that Hashem's name is written in the Torah. There's tens of thousands of other Jews who are from that same Yud. But it could be that you're the only one in this generation. Could be that you're the only one in this family. Could be that you're the only one in this neighborhood. You're very, very special, unique. So we don't believe that. And so we have to try to meditate every single day. Rabbi Nachman says, these are called your nikudot tovot, your good points. And you have to do that for other people. Look at their good points. Sometimes it's easier to see someone else's good points than to find your own. Sometimes people find their own because they're honest people, and they know that they're whatever they were given a gift by Hashem. They identify it, and then they use it to help the world. But don't let your inner enemy pull you down. And when that happens, which it happens to us, right? It happens to us. What happens? I'll tell you an interesting thing that I learned this week. I forgot which shir I heard this in, but it's something that we learned a long time ago, and it just slipped my mind, and now I'm going to share it with you because I just reheard it. And I think whenever I learn something that I think is life changing, I always like to share it. And by the way, I tell that to people. I tell it to a lot of my students. If they don't know what their tafkid is in this world, I just know about being a teacher, and so I can tell you that if as soon as you hear something that you really, really love and brings you closer to Hashem, and you feel like you must tell the whole world, then that's your nekudat tova. That's your point. And whatever that is, I remember my mother, she should rest in peace. She wasn't a teacher. She loved music. We come from a Kohen family, Kohanim and Levium, and my mother's a Bas Kohen on the women's side. It's interesting. It's on the women's side. So I remember my mother and so I grew up when I was a little kid. We had record players. I'm sure you all remember what those are. And we had radios. I'm sure you all remember what those are. Anyway, my mother always had classical music playing in the background, always. And I didn't like it because you know how it is. Sometimes you like what your mother does in the background, sometimes you like the opposite. And that music, somehow I knew it, I recognized it, I could hear it in my head, but I was happy when it was quiet in the house. My mother had to put music on all the time. Anyway, I remember that, and so as an adult, she would sometimes call me, and she would say, she listened to, on WQXR. I don't know if any of you even know what that is, but that was her station, I think. Yeah, just popped into my head those letters in New York. And she said she just heard the most beautiful. She hasn't heard in such a long time, and she would go on and on. And I would say, "Oh, I'm so glad for you, mommy. It's so nice. It's so nice." But she heard that, she knew that I wasn't into that. So then, what she did, she figured out another solution. Every time a concert came on that she liked, she would call her sister, my aunt. They should both enjoy this story in Gan Eden. I'm sure they're in a very high place in Gan Eden. They were both tzidkaniyot. She would call my aunt and she would say, "Alice, quick, turn on the radio. They're playing such and such, Mozart's, whatever. I don't know." And so she couldn't keep it to herself. She loved it so much, and it gave her so much It opened her soul. And so she couldn't keep that, so she had to share it with somebody else. So whatever opens your soul, and then you feel like you want everyone else's soul to be open, that's your that's a point, one point that you have to pay attention to. Some people, it's when they find that information on a computer. They figured out a new way to do a program. I'm not a computer programmer, so I don't know if what I just said makes sense, but they figured out a way to operate AI. I know that one of my students, her husband, is a very, very big person in AI. AI means artificial intelligence. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. I think right now I'm very not for it, but because of the danger of it, but I know that it could be used in a good way. And so my student's husband is running around the world. He works for one of these AI companies, and he's running around the world going to universities trying to explain to them how to use AI responsibly and peacefully, etc. He's a very, very naive, pure, pure, pure soul. So I keep saying the world is so mean and corrupt. So many people, you think they're going to use AI to benefit humanity, they're going to use AI to benefit themselves and their pockets and whatever. But anyway, when people have an invention, they have a new idea, and they're not money, they're not doing it for money. They're doing it because they had a new idea, and look how this can benefit the world. And that's one of your uniquenesses. If you think a long time, you'll find out what is it in your life that you want to share, even if it's just sharing a shear. Like if you hear a shear that you like and you feel you must send it out. I know a whole bunch of you do that, and it's a very, very big zikui harabim. It's a benefiting of the masses. It's a big plus for people to send, to share things that inspire them. Anyway, that's your nikudat tova. That's one of your main nikudot tova. Also, the nikudot tova that you have are also bound up in your life story, your life situation, um, how you're dealing with your life situation. You know that to make a separation between us and our uncle Asaph. Asaph's job had he chosen to stay within the program, his job was to go into the world, to walk in the field, and to um, stay holy, and to avoid the temptations of unholiness in the world. That was his job. That's why God gave him the nature of being a man of the world. He was a hunter, and he was a business person, and he was a people person, and he was a governor. Had all these very, very high, powerful, fiery, potentially good um, natures to him. He wanted to go out and change the world. But he had to do that and also to avoid the temptations of the world. And that's where he failed. So um, sometimes our job is that we have to be in the situation that we're in, whatever our life situation is, and just avoid the negativity of falling into, avoid falling into the negativity of that particular situation. In the end, who took over Asa's job? Yosef Atzadik, and he had to go into Mitzrayim, and he had to avoid the temptations of Ashes Potiphar, and then he had to avoid the temptations of pride in being the viceroy, and he had to avoid the temptations of money because he had all the money in his hands, and he had to avoid the temptations of rulership and all of that, and he did. So that's your real enemy. Your real enemy is yourself, but you're your best friend also. See, the real enemy is not external; it's internal, and the fixing of the internal enemy. My teacher from a long time ago. I don't want to say her name in public because she'll probably not want that. But I have a teacher who taught me years and years ago, for many, many years, a very, very wise woman. Um, and um, and she used to say that 90% of fixing any problem is correctly diagnosing it, whether it's medical, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual. When you can figure it out, you figure out what's wrong. What is it? That's 90% of the fixing. 90%. You get a 90 on the test just by figuring it out. So right away, by recognizing that I have an internal enemy and I'm not going to let it vanquish me, and I'm going to put on a smile no matter what. Look at the chesed Hashem did for us. You know the chesed Hashem did for us, that the physical lifting up of your cheekbones, right, and your lips and your smile, that physical action triggers off all these good hormones in the brain. And physically moving your body, walking, jumping, dancing. Rabbi Nachman is always screaming, dance, clap your hands, snap your fingers, dance, right? Why? Because it right away, the physical stimulates the positivity in your life. So we have an enemy, and sometimes we have sad days. You wake up and you feel empty. This is what I was going to tell you before that I learned this week, or that I recalled this week, is that sometimes, does it ever happen to you? You know, we talk a lot about souls, and of course, we cannot see a soul. All areas of learning about the soul are in the category of Kabbalah, of mysticism. But one of the things that we know is the soul is not boundary. And we know we have a book called Sefer HaGilgulim of the Ari HaKadosh. It's actually translated into English with commentary in the Ascent Chabad of Tzfat. They should stay safe and be well. Tzfat should stay safe. What do we know? We don't know. But anyway, they have it all translated into English. It's very, very complicated. Mamish, very complicated. But whatever it is, he talks about Ibur Neshama. What's an Ibur Neshama? An Ibur Neshama, the simplest way of an Ibur Neshama is I'll tell you. Let's say there are many different levels of Ibur Neshama. Ibur Neshama means you're pregnant with a soul. What does that mean? We have a soul. That's who we are. That soul is us. Doesn't change whatever. But sometimes there's another soul that needs a tikkun, that needs a fixing. Let's say, for example, here, my job in this world is to teach. One of my jobs in this world is to teach. Let's say there's a soul from a long time ago that was supposed to be a teacher and that didn't make it, that just chose not to, or I don't know, needs to teach a class. So sometimes it can happen that out of nowhere, a teacher will receive the soul of another past, another person's soul that passed away already, that's no longer in a body. But that soul needs a tikkun, needs a fixing. Let's say that soul was supposed to teach a shir in Parshas Balak, and it didn't in a previous life. So now it comes into a teacher who's teaching Parshas Balak, and because the teacher who's teaching Parshas Balak has an additional soul. It's like Shabbos, you get an additional influx of infusion of spirituality, and then you have a very, very a feeling of closeness to Hashem. You have an extra dimension of spirituality. It feels very good. And then that soul gets its tikkun through the teacher who's teaching that shir. I'm not saying that that's happening to me right now because I don't really feel anything special. I'm just giving this an example. And then when that soul had its fixing through you, it was very nice of you to do that, then it leaves you. But when it leaves you, it feels like Motzei Shabbos. You know what Motzei Shabbos feels like? You know, is that, or maybe you keep Shabbos till Sunday morning, right? In other words, you're still in Malava Malka, and then you go to sleep, so already you don't feel, but you wake up Sunday morning and you don't feel Shabbos anymore. That feeling of Chaser Lach is missing, is the neshama that was just ibur, that was just in you, that just departed. Nothing bad happened. You're the same person that you were. You just became a host for a little bit to a neshama that needed a tikkun, or that needed an additional something. So sometimes we feel spiritually empty, and we don't realize. We think, oh, we're bad. We think that, oh, maybe we're, whatever, you're having a bad day, it could be that that's not the case at all. It could be that you were gifted something and it was just taken away a little bit, and for that little bit that it was taken away, you feel that emptiness. Like Shaul HaMelech, that's exactly what happened to him when he lost his malchus, when he lost his ability to become king. It was removed from him, and that was the source of his sadness and his misunderstanding. He didn't realize that David HaMelech had already been crowned, and that the malchus, the special neshama of the melech, was given to David HaMelech, and that he lost it, and that's why he was so sad and had such a hard time. So anyway, let's hope that we all, recognize our enemy. I talk to my enemy a lot. I say, you're bothering me now. Leave me alone. I learned it from Levi Yitzchak from Berditchev. You know the story of Levi Yitzchak from Berditchev and how he talks to his enemy. So his father-in-law, when he got married, so his father-in-law wanted to show him off to the people at his shul. So he brought for Shabbos, the young couple came, and his father-in-law knew that he took a son-in-law, took a tzaddik, so he said he wants him to daven for the Amid, he wants him to be the Chazan. And so Levi Yitzchak, because he wanted to show him off how his prayers are, how his inspiring is, etc. So he says to the Gabbai, tell my son-in-law to be Chazan. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak chapped, he understood exactly what's going on. And as he's walking up to become the Chazan, he's saying, get away from me, get away from me, get away from me. And he's like walking and then going back and back and acting like a crazy person. And then finally he said, all right, if you insist, then I'm not going to go either. And he sat down. So the father was so embarrassed. This is the kind of son-in-law he took. He was trying to show him off. And he said to me when he came home, he says, and what did you do? And he said, listen, I was going up. I wanted to give you a nachas. I was going up to be the chazan. And I was going to do my best to elevate the congregation and help them, inspire them to pray. But what could I do? The Yetzer Hara was bothering me. And it was saying, I'm going to be with you, and every prayer that you say, I'm going to make you gaivadik, I'm going to make you prideful, I'm going to make you arrogant, I'm going to make you so think that you're the greatest. And I kept saying, get away from me, get away from me. And he wouldn't get away. So I said, fine, okay, I can't go up and bring down the whole congregation with my negative. So I'm not going. And in that way, I vanquished the Yetzer Hara, and I didn't give him an opportunity to give me pride, and I didn't give an opportunity for him to make the congregation have prayers that were tainted by the Yetzer Hara. So of course the father was very happy with him, and they lived happily ever after. But I learned from that. You're allowed to talk to your Yetzer Hara and say, or talk to Hashem and say, Hashem, this is not me. This is my Yetzer Hara. I know you just sent me a Yetzer Hara. I don't like it. I don't want it. I repudiate it. I disconnect from it. I'll try my best to not even do what the Yetzer Hara is telling me to do. But I really want to be close to you, Hashem. I really only want you, and I want to live for you, and I want to live to serve you, and I want to live to give you nachas, and I want to live to help the Jewish people, and I want to live to help the world and to help my family. And that's really what I really want. And right now, the angel that you sent, that you put inside of me, is annoying me. And I'm doing my best, and I might fail, but I'm telling you what my intentions are. My intentions are only for you, Hashem. Okay, sweetie pies, I'm going to run. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you for coming. I'm going to end the YouTube, and then I'm going to end the Zoom. Zoom people, stay on for 1 second. I'll say hi to you, because I can't say hi to the YouTube people, because I don't know who they are. Okay, let's do this. 1 second. Okay.